merkt man, dass wir ganz nah sind.
Genau. Danke.
Erinnern wir uns.
Dass auch alles mit seinem Stab schlägt.
Jeder, der einschläft, bekommt der Vers von dem Buch allein Scheiß.
Wer hat den Vers geschrieben?
Nur für die, Acha. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa Parivraj, Acharya, Ashtotra Sapta Shri Srimad Radha Swami. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayirudiraye Nashta Prayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhaktir Bhagavati Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, let's do this again. Anybody knows the verse exactly? 2:1 18. No. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke. Hi, where is it? 2:1
1, 2,
1 to 18. Yeah. Nashta Prayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled? Anybody remembers?
The song of
The
creation of the fourth order. No?
creation of the fourth order, yes. Yeah. And chapter 24, entitled Chanting the Song Sung by Lord Shiva. Text 68. Atatvangasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvashtam Akutaschit Payagatihi Atvamasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvashtam Akutaschit Payagatihi Atatvangasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvashtam Akutaschit Payagatihi
Athatvamasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvashtam Akutaschit Payagatihi Atatvamasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvastam Akutaschit Payagatihi Atatvamasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvastam Akutaschit Payagatihi Ahatvam Tasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam
Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvashtam Akutaschit Payagatihi
Atatvamasino
Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam
Vishvam Rudra
Bhayadvashtam
Akutaschit Payagatihi Atatvamasino Brahman Paramatman Vipashchitam Vishvam Rudra Bhayadvashtam Akutaschit Payagatihi. Thank you. Word by word. Ata, therefore, Tvam, you, my Lord. Asi, are. Naha, our. Brahman, O Supreme Brahman. Parama Atman, O Super Soul. Vipashchitam, for the learned wise men. Vishwam, the whole universe. Rudra Bhaya, being afraid of Rudra. Tvastam, annihilated. Akutaschit Paya, undoubtedly fearless. Gatihi, destination. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Chai. My dear Lord, all actually learned persons know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Super Soul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything. For the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. Purport. For the purpose of creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation, there are three lords, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Maheshwara. The material body is finished at the time of annihilation. Both the universal body and the small unit, the individual living entity's body, are susceptible to annihilation at the ultimate end. However, the devotees do not fear the annihilation of the body, for they are confident that after the annihilation, they will go back home, back to Godhead. Tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mamiti Arjuna. If one strictly follows the process of devotional service, he has no fear of death, for he is predestined to go back home, back to Godhead. The non-devotees are fearful of death because they have no guarantee of where they are going or of the type of body that they are going to get in their next life. The word Rudrabhaya is significant in this verse because Rudra himself, Lord Shiva, is speaking of fear of Rudra. This indicates that there are many Rudras, 11 Rudras, and the Rudra, Lord Shiva, who was offering this prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is different from the other Rudras, although he is as powerful as they are. The conclusion is that one Rudra is afraid of another Rudra, because each and every one of them is engaged in the destruction of this cosmic manifestation. But for the devotee, everyone is afraid of Rudra, even Rudra himself. A devotee is never afraid of Rudra, because he is always secure, being protected by the lotus feet of the Lord. As Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktya pranashyati. My dear Arjuna, you may declare publicly that my pure devotee will not be vanquished under any circumstances. Om agyana timirandhasya gyananchana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Saha Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Again the verse. My dear Lord, all actually learned persons know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Super Soul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything, for the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. Okay, Hare Krishna, the devotees. So I've been assigned to give Srimad Bhagavatam class, and as you've already noticed, I guess, I'm not very much used to it, and so I'm depending on the blessings of the devotees, especially senior Vaishnavas present, so that we can make this fruitful for you, and I hope I can get some purification also. So we're at the end of the Rudra Gita. Already Krishna Prem Rupa Prabhu yesterday mentioned that this verse today is the last one of the song sung by Lord Shiva. And after this, then he's going to address the prachetas again. So far he has been praying to the Lord, instructing the prachetas indirectly also, but then again he will give them more instructions after this verse. So in this song sung by Lord Shiva, he glorified Krishna, and he spoke about many different aspects, many truths, tattva about Krishna. And also today he refers to Krishna as the supreme Brahman and the super soul, and that everybody actually knows that. Or he says the actually learned persons. Yesterday we were hearing the what was it? The wise men, or the actually wise men. The wise man who is actually wise. That he actually then understands that Krishna is the supreme Brahman and super soul. And in this way we can also see that Lord Rudra or Shiva, he takes the inferior position. He puts himself as a devotee of Krishna. Sometimes there's the argument who is actually supreme, but from these statements here we can understand that Shiva himself sees himself as a servant of Krishna and sees that Krishna is the supreme Lord. And this especially shows here where he mentions that, or actually Prabhupada makes this point, he elaborates on this point, that even Rudra is afraid of something, basically death eventually. Prabhupada says in the purport, the word Rudra Bhaya is significant in this verse because Rudra himself, Lord Shiva, is speaking of fear of Rudra. This indicates that there are many Rudras, and the Rudra, Lord Shiva, who was offering this prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is different from other Rudras. And the conclusion is that one Rudra is afraid of another Rudra, because every one of them is engaged in destruction of this cosmic manifestation. And then he says, interestingly, but for the devotee, everyone is afraid of Rudra, even Rudra himself. So everybody has Rudra Bhaya, has this fear of Rudra, because he's very fearsome. You can imagine he's destroying the whole world, he's dancing this fearsome dance, and in this way everybody is quite afraid of this personality, but the devotee. So somehow, and I won't go into this point, but here it seems that Prabhupada makes a point, Shiva is not actually a pure devotee, right? Because he's afraid himself also of the other Rudras. If he was a pure devotee, then he would not be afraid. So that would be something to explore a little bit. I didn't prepare for that, but we discussed a little bit with Krishna Prema Rupa Prabhu yesterday that Shiva Tattva is a very complex issue, and that's why I'm not really qualified to say much on that. But we will instead speak of the fearlessness of a devotee that comes from, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, my dear Arjuna, you may declare publicly that my pure devotee will not be vanquished under any circumstance. So Krishna himself promises us that there will be no fear at all, no problems for the pure devotee who just surrenders to his lotus feet. And in preparation I came across this very beautiful verse from the 11th canto that explains the concept of Dvitiya Abhiniveshata. Have you heard of this before? Dvitiya Abhiniveshata. Yes, exactly. So Dvitiya and Abhinivesha. I quickly read the verse. Bhayang Dvitiya Abhiniveshatasya Dishadapetasya Viparya Yosmriti Tanmayato Buddha Bhajetam Bhaktyai Kayesham Guru Devatatma. And Prabhupada, in the translation, he brings out everything from our philosophy. It's really, really beautiful. He, in one translation, he pretty much summarizes the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So he says, fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and as his very life and soul. So basically, everything is in there. What is the issue? Is that we are absorbed in material life, in something else than Krishna. We perceive something else than Krishna. And in this way, we forget that we're actually a servant of Krishna. And then what to do about it? The solution is also already there in the verse. One should just engage in unflinching and unalloyed devotional service and accept the spiritual master, whom one should make the center of all attention and surrender his life to. So it's very, very to the point that there's actually nothing outside of Krishna. And even in this verse that I just quoted, it's from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, text 7, where the Yogendras instruct King Nimi. I think Kavi is instructing there. And this verse then also is quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita 3 times, which is in itself quite interesting. That means it's an important verse. And there is also another translation is given for the last part, where it says Guru Devat Atma. So here it says, one should accept the spiritual master as his worshipable deity and as his very life and soul. There it is slightly different in a sense that one should make the super soul his worshipable deity and put him, understand that he is in one's heart and worship him. So there's this interesting point that Guru and super soul, they're non-different in one sense. And in this way, one actually gets the knowledge of how to perform devotional service. And so the Guru, he instructs us in the understanding that there's nothing outside of Krishna. And that's actually what a learned devotee means. It says, that all actually learned persons know you as a supreme Brahma. And then again, for the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination. So Prabhupada makes this point, the learned devotees. It's not just any devotee and everybody, but you have to be learned. When the wise man actually becomes wise, right? So what does it mean? It basically means that we understand Sambandha Gyan. That who we are, who Krishna is, and what the connection is. No, it's basically right from the beginning of Bhagavatam we hear Janmadya Yasyato, that everything comes from Krishna. There's nothing besides Krishna in this world. So sometimes we think, my life and then Krishna, but actually it's not, you cannot separate it. Or, my activities, Krishna activities, it's all connected and everything comes from Krishna. The same energy that we call Maya is also the spiritual energy when one can make the switch of consciousness. And just recently when we were in Simhachalam at the Sankirtan festival, we discussed this point of honesty, of sincerity. What does it mean to be sincere? Sometimes one devotee brought it up on the streets. People say that they're sincere, they're sincerely searching for God, but they don't want this book about Krishna. Many spiritualists out there, they say, I have everything, I'm on my path, and better you give it to somebody who doesn't know. But actually, if you're really interested in spirituality, you should grab this with both hands and immediately go to read it. So what does it mean, sincerity? And then Sankirtan Prabhu, who is a very exceptional devotee from Czech Republic, he won the marathon there, and he's temple president of two temples, a farm project and a center in Prague, and full-time Sankirtan devotee at the same time. He did full marathon. And usually also during the year he goes out every day. 5 days a week he told me, and then 2 days. One day he's at the preaching center on Sunday to be there and to organize Sunday feasts and be there. Saturday he's at the farm and guiding devotees there. And this he's doing for the past basically 10 years at least. He's just going at it. So very exceptional devotee, and he made this point, what does it mean to be sincere? It means to act upon the knowledge that we have. Before we have the knowledge, and that's what it means to be learned, we cannot actually know things, right? We are in ignorance. So we need to get the knowledge first to get then realization how we can live accordingly. But now if somebody knows that there is God and there is me, but still this person pursues his own selfish goals, that means he's not honest, he's not sincere. He's not acting upon the knowledge that he got. And then problems arise, then fear arises from this misunderstanding that we're not God, that we think that we are God, that we are the center of attention. And then we consider the world Dvitiya, there is something else than Krishna. And Abhiniveshata, we get absorbed in it. We take it for full. We think we're this material body and we're the enjoyer of all that we survey. And it's interesting also, this concept of fearlessness is very present in the whole Bhagavatam and in our philosophy, and also Srila Prabhupada. Once he was asked, what does it mean? Somebody challenged him. You say you have love of God. What does that mean? Like, this is just some words up in the sky, phantasmagoria. What does it mean to be a lover of God? And he said, immediately like Prabhupada is, I have no fear. It means that I have no fear. And that's the position of a pure devotee. Sometimes we can have glimpses of that, and we'll come into for that also a little later, but pure devotee, he knows everything is Krishna's arrangement, it's Krishna's will, and he's just a servant. So whatever happens, happens, and he will just do his best to serve his Lord from his heart and soul, with his heart and soul. And it's just like the example is given of a father and a son. If you're, or a daughter, you're a small kid, you're walking with your father, nothing can harm you, right? Probably you have this experience. You walk down the street and, whatever. The bully that bullies you in school, he will go the other side of the street, and the cars, they will stop because your father is tall and they will let you pass. Nothing, you have no fears. Everything is taken care of. Your father is there to protect you. And so similarly, the devotee, knowing the Supreme Father Krishna will protect him in any circumstance, has no fear whatsoever. And it's just interesting that as soon as this Dvitiya comes in, this conception there is something else than Krishna, or that we have control over things, then this fear arises, especially about the future. What will the future hold for me? What will happen to me? And I had one experience like this with my mother when I went to my mother's place before the marathon. Then, a little bit of background. My mother is very much into esoteric things and other things also, and she does yoga for 2 years. She turned vegetarian soon after I joined. Also, she started doing yoga, and she actually told me 4 years later. She never told me that when I started with Hare Krishna, coming to the temple and all this, and then when I joined, a little after that, she also chanted the Hare Krishna mantra when she was alone. She thought, okay, I need to try. Why is he doing this? And then she chanted, and she never told me this. Only 4 years after, she said, but it was too much. It was so powerful. I was afraid, that if I do this, then I will also have to continue. And she was like that, I was very surprised, and she never told me. She never told me. It's very, very powerful, she said. And so anyway, she didn't pursue it, unfortunately, but maybe time will come. But anyway, she started doing other spiritual practices, and actually just a year ago, and I don't know what Krishna's plan is behind this, but she started with TM, Transcendental Meditation. So seriously, she went there, and she was also saying to me, somehow it's strange. Now I'm also in contact with Sanskrit and all this. Somehow there's some connection there. And I don't know why, but now I ended up there, She's like, that's the thing, if people go just do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, they're very confused what they're doing. They don't know, actually. But, so she went there, and she's now chanting some mantra that they gave her. She had to pay a lot, like Prabhupada always says, And then also she's chanting Om Namah Shivaya. She told me recently she's chanting Om Namah Shivaya. Shri Shri Jagannath Dev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaunikai Ki Jai. Jai. So she's chanting Om Namah Shivaya, and the purpose, her intention is to give up the control. She wants to give control to God, she says, to God. And of course I explained her, Mama, Shiva is not God, but he's a devotee of God. Anyway, she didn't quite take that. So, but then when I was there, so just this is the background. Yeah, my mother is into esoteric things and spirituality and God, just not this whole surrender thing. That's a little bit too much. So, but she likes these ideas, and then we have discussions. You know, she sometimes says that I'm fanatic and this and that. And then one morning, as I was just leaving to go outside, and said that I thank you that I can stay here, you know, express my gratitude. It's really nice that I can take some time and just stay, you know, have a little peace from the temple. And she says, yeah, you know, one day you will have to face the reality, and you will have to earn money and earn your livelihood, and I won't be there, you know, and this and that. And she got really like, you know, sometimes she goes on in a rant, you know, just, and she said, so, you know, one day you will have to face the reality. You will have to earn money yourself and have a place yourself and all this. And I could just, like, and she was like, you know, implying that now you're not doing anything really, you know, this is not substantial, this won't help you in the future. And you can just see that if people have this dvitiya abhinivesha, if they're not fully fixed in spiritual goals, in Krishna, then they get so fearful about everything and anything. And basically she was saying, what I thought then was, you know, why should we worry? If God is there, if God exists, we were speaking about this also yesterday, if God exists and it makes so much sense to serve Him, to practice devotional service is the best thing you can do with your life. And if Krishna is actually there, if God exists, then why will you not take care? Like Prabhupada also quotes here this 931 Bhagavad Gita. So, of course, we have to fulfill our duty, and that's what I thought then maybe Krishna wants to tell me, you have to be, you know, Prabhupada also mentions here, if one strictly follows the process of devotional service, he has no fear of death, for he's predestined to go back home, back to God. Strictly. You have to follow strictly. It's not just, you know, you be a devotee and do your little own thing and just do what you want to do. No, you have to, you know, make the Guru your worshipful deity, follow his instructions, follow Srila Prabhupada, and make it, and do it to the point. It's not that you just do something. So I thought maybe that's what I have to learn here. But I didn't quite respond to that. You know, it's interesting how a mother, she has a special Shakti to pierce your heart, because, you know, she has been there for you and she's always your well-wisher. So if she says things, I take it seriously, even now. But anyway, I went, and then I came back later, and she excused herself, saying, you know, maybe this was a little bit harsh. And I said, you know, Mother, what it shows is just you have no faith in God, and you have no real faith in God. And I told her what I just said, you know, if there is God, and if I'm serving, if I do my duty, then what is the fear? And then it kind of clicked. And that's always fascinating to see when somebody actually realizes, you know, understands philosophical points, and it does something to them, no? And so yeah, in this way I hope that gradually she will also take up Krishna consciousness and become actually fearless. Because she has these phases, like all of us, I guess, but those who are more into entangled in material things, then they have more this fear of what will the future hold, what will my kid do, and what will happen to the world, and this and that. But if we have this understanding that we're servants of Krishna, if we have this Sambandha Gyan, then, as Prabhupada says here, there is no fear, even of death. So there's this distinction between the materialist and the spiritualist. And Prabhupada says, why is the materialist fearful? You remember from the purport? Why is the materialist fearful, the karmi? He says, because the non-devotees are fearful of death because they have no guarantee of where they are going.
Because destination after death is not guaranteed.
Yes, exactly. And they don't know what kind of body they will get, whereas the devotee will have a certainty where he's going. And yeah, the karmis, you know, what they say is the highest goal is somehow to rest in peace. If somebody dies, that's the main wish, please, may he rest in peace. Right? That's the highest achievement. After this stressful life where there's no peace at all and you're always running around, and then may he just rest in peace. It's funny, that this is, like, what is this, and again you can see this Shunyavad and Mayavad influence that has crept in so much in our Western society, just peace, just no problems, and that will be it. No positive aspiration, no deeper sense of why we're doing things and what is going to happen. And in this connection, there's this nice story, Prabhupada often told it, about the sadhu who goes around to bless people, right? He goes to the butcher, and he tells him, you don't live, you don't die. He goes to the son of a Muni, Muni Putra, who is a brahmachari engaged in tapasya, serving his spiritual master, and he says, you should die immediately. And then he goes to the prince and tells him, live forever. And to the sadhu he says, either die or live, it doesn't matter. So what is the purpose behind this? Basically the butcher, he's engaged in so many gross activities. He's killing animals. So what he's doing now is horrible, but his next destination is even more horrible, basically. Then he will be slaughtered. So he says, don't live, don't die. Either is not a good option for you. Then to the son of the Muni he says, die immediately. You have done so many tapasyas, you're such a good servant, you're trained up to be a Vaikuntha man. After this life you will go to Vaikuntha. So better you die now. No need for further austerities. For the prince he says, live forever, because right now you're, living in opulence and you're having a good life. And Prabhupada says, in the next life you will be dog. Like that, no? It's like all the good karma will be exhausted and you will take birth as a street dog in India, which is not fun. And then to the sadhu he says, either die or live, it doesn't matter. Why? Because now, as when you're living, you serve Krishna, and then also it says, a sadhu dies to live, to preach. While he's living, he's preaching the holy name, but then when he dies, he actually lives on in Krishna's kingdom, or wherever Krishna sends him to serve him more. So for the devotee, it doesn't matter if you live or die. And that's why there's no fear. So now, of course, what it means is that we have to strictly follow the process of devotional service. That means we have to increase our eagerness, increase our faith, and also test Krishna's statements when he says, my devotee will never perish. We have to experience this, the Krishna's protection and how Krishna reciprocates with our service. We have to make firm, real experiences. Otherwise it stays theory and we might have some faith in it, but how much is it actually realized? And I think you can very much see this in the life of the early ISKCON devotees, how they just put it on the test. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he mentioned his Prabhupada memories. That's what they did, So Prabhupada said, Krishna will protect you, Krishna will look for you, just do this. And he said they had full faith, they just did whatever. They went to San Francisco and Hippie Hill, built the center there. Then they went to meet the Beatles with nothing, just a bunch of guys without any money, nothing. They meet the Beatles and make George Harrison a devotee, make a single that is top of the charts. They just do it, whatever. There's no fear. And also he tells a story how in San Francisco sometimes they wouldn't have money. They didn't know how to pay the rent. And then the next day they would open the letter box, and there's an envelope with $1,000 in it. Nobody knows where it comes from. Another time he said he was just walking down the street. The story. He was walking down the street from his apartment to the temple, and there's $100 bills blowing in the wind. And it's like he's just collecting them, and like that, all these stories far out, where you think, really, is it true? But that's the thing, we have such a comfortable place here in Zurich and in many ISKCON temples. We don't really know these austerities and the actual benefit that comes from them, this exposure to the fear also in one sense, to the fear of not knowing what is going to happen if we do this or that. And I adopted this from Wim Hof, Wim Hof. Yeah? He says, you have to go to the cold so the cold doesn't come to you. So that you don't get sick. You go to the cold, you go into cold water and do tapasya. And so we have to expose ourselves to fear so that fear won't haunt us. Because once we experience fear and pursue that, then we see Krishna is helping us, he's protecting us. We put Krishna to the test and he will reciprocate with that. And of course it shouldn't be in a challenging mood, jumping off a building and say, Krishna, protect me. That's not what is meant. But understand how these things are working. Once in a lecture, Krishna Prema Prabhu made this point. I checked, it was actually on the 7th of January 2020, so pretty much 3 years ago to the point. You said that Krishna basically made this etiquette for the material world. Like we have a t-shirt made in Bangladesh probably, and 100% cotton. Then Krishna put an etiquette to this material world, which is Dukhalayam Shashvatam, Anityam Asukam. This is a place of misery and suffering and of temporary nature. Nothing is going to stay. So that's why we cannot be happy here. There will naturally be fear if we're not conscious of Krishna. And then, so what to do? Dukhalayam. And Swami Keshav Maharaj, he once in a class at Langenthal said this, there's Dukhalaya. Alaya means place. In India still they have, in Hindi, Aushadhi Alaya and different alayas. Alaya means place. Aushadhi is then place of the herbs or the medicine, like a drogerie, a drugstore. So the Aushadhi Alaya, there is the Dukhalaya, and then there is the Rasalaya, the Rasamalaya. And I just wanted, during marathon, we had this melody in mind of Bhakta Christian Prabhu. He always chants this beautiful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 113. So I thought I can quickly try to make an offering to Bhakta Christian by singing his melody. Nigama kalpataror galitam palam Shuka mukadamrita drava samyutam Pibata bhagavata rasamalayam Muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavuka Nigama kalpataro galitam palam. Do you remember this one? It's so beautiful. When he sings, he has so much bhav. So this verse 113 of Bhagavatam, it says that this Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, and the fruits have become even sweeter due to the touching of the lips of Shukadev Goswami. And so he says, Pibata Bhagavatam, drink this Bhagavatam, because it is the Rasa Alayam, it's the place of Rasa. So either we are absorbed in Dukhalaya, in the place of suffering, or we take to the Rasalaya, the Srimad Bhagavatam, where there is the real taste to be found in this material world. And then, when we speak of exposing ourselves to fear and putting Krishna to the test, I thought there is also another alaya where we can really do this very practically, and it's the Sankirtan alaya, the Sankirtan Kshetra, where the devotees go to distribute books. And of course, on book distribution, you have to become fearless, otherwise, it will be tough. But you also become naturally this process that you give up your false ego more and more, or at least you try to perceive Krishna more and more. And so this was one of my main marathons meditation this year, that Sankirtan book distribution is mainly about being Krishna conscious and seeing the super soul everywhere. This was one of my meditation. It's not what you say, in which manner, but it's about where you're at in your consciousness. This, people will feel that. You can say everything, and people will take books. Shiva Maharaj makes this statement of how he learned book distribution. And so the first time he was going around with a devotee, I had forgot his name, and they were at the airport. And so Shiva Maharaj asked, so what should I say? How should I approach people and give them a book? And this devotee looked at him, and he had big glasses, which made his eyes even bigger, and he was like just in disbelief that he has just asked this question. This was the simplicity of the devotees back then. They just had so much faith that whatever they do, people will just take a book. So then he said, okay, follow me. And he wanted to prove to him the point that it doesn't matter what you say. So he said all kind of, crazy things. And Shiramash just mentions at one place he was saying to some couple was coming, and he said, look, the ducks, they're freezing in Lake Michigan. Somewhere in the US, there's somewhere else, totally different. They're freezing, it's summer. They're freezing there in the Lake Michigan. And this book explains all how we can save them. Just give a donation and take a book. And people are like, okay. Like this, Just like totally, outlandish. But it just, and he made several such examples where Shivamash could just understand, well, yeah, it's not about what we say, it's about where we're at in consciousness, Of course, it's little, I thought it's a little difficult to speak about the ducks in Lake Michigan, but be absorbed in Krishna. But yeah, these devotees, they were on another plane. So like this, and you can actually feel if you try to do this, then Sankirtan becomes like so much more than just, speaking to people and give them a book, but it becomes a real exchange of consciousness, essentially. And people will just take the books, and we have, yesterday, Astor told me that we also collect numbers to then, stay in contact, and Astor Prabhu calls them up. Very nice, no? Imagine you have Astor calling you. I would like to join immediately. So anyway, he said this person from Chur, he picked up the phone, and then he said, yeah, you met Lukas, you took some books, right? And he said, yeah, I took 4 books. So then he was, yeah, okay, so you're really excited, no, inspired to continue. He said, actually, not really. I haven't read the books. It was just because he was so nice, he was so nice. And it's like, that's Sankirtan, the people, they cannot really conceive what's happening. And it's not because of me or anything, but it's just because if they get touched by Krishna, if the devotee is purely trying, let's say, not that I'm very pure, but if you have the desire to give them a book, then they will take the book, no matter, if they're really interested or not. Like that. And these kind of experiences, they give you the fearlessness. And, yeah, I think time is over, but I would just like to encourage you to try also book distribution sometime. And, yeah, just put ourselves out of the comfort zone a little bit every now and then. There's many ways of doing it, of course. And also in the temple, there's ample opportunity. But outside the temple, Krishna is even more active, because you put yourself on the line, and he sees, oh, this devotee, he's out there alone with so many, demons and others. So I have to protect him, I have to take care of him. And it's very, very sweet to get glimpses of this protection. I think we'll end here. Thank you very much for your attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Bhakta Lukas Prabhu came. Yes.